Akademiks. Can't ride no wave.
Topics. Please remind me we should give an update on what's going on in Iran, what's going on in the Middle East. It's a lot of interesting developments. Unfortunately, I have to be honest. And, you know, I know some people feel like, you know, I think they used to like say I'm right wing or whatever. I've been pretty critical of Trump recently. You know, number one, I don't think his name should have been coming up all them times in the Epstein files. That was sus. Again, I'm not anti-Trump, clearly. But, you know, these are questions we got to ask. And I'm not too fond of how this war is being treated. Essentially, and maybe I give that update before we get to it. And I'll do that in an AI update, and then we'll kind of get into things. And, of course, we're going to watch this Jay-Z thing. But I want to give you guys kind of an update on what's going on in the world. So the United States is in like this unwinnable position where what we did in Venezuela, right? We expected to do somewhat of the sort in Iran. Now, I'm not too sure why that was even a thought. I'll give you a few differences. I'm going to keep everything simple. I'm not going to get into too much info, but I want to simplify everything for you guys. By the way, one of the reasons why I'm also, you know, expanding topics yet again, at my meet and greet, I really appreciated the people who told me, hey, listen, Ak, I've been watching for 10 years. I appreciate how you have started to take other topics outside of hip hop and break it down in layman's terms for us. I really like it. And if you're one of those people, I appreciate you, and I think that continues the brand of what we call the Academy. Like, we're here to have fun. We gonna laugh. There's a lot of clownery, but we do want to keep super educated and also super informed. So the current situation going on with this quote-unquote war, it appears that gas prices might, you know, start rising to we don't know what level. And there's a few things that's affecting it, right? So we thought we were going to go into Iran. We killed their general a couple years ago. And now we killed their supreme leader. It's this Ayatollah-like Khomeini guy, right? And we thought once we pretty much destabilized their government, it would empower people who were mad, right? So like this was a ruling guy for 30 years. Some people were uncomfortable with his rule, and there were protests that were kind of happening. The rule of thumb with everybody, or the rule of thumb in, you know, geopolitics is to take over a nation or to have a nation do what you want, you got to destabilize them with the people who are mad. You can't just be a, you know, oppressive regime anymore, because people will look at you like you're a bully, right? So what you do is you find that there's a bunch of people that are mad at how Iran's been running. You support them, and then you give them a chance to kind of take back their country by getting rid of their leader. So that was the plan. It was a pretty simple plan. Now, of course, Israel's just sitting over there just kind of like cooling, like, yo, do our dirty work, because, you know, in the Middle East, we've looked at it a bunch of times. We've looked at the map like a shit ton of times. The idea here is Israel, even though it is, you know, Israel, even though it is equipped with a tremendous amount of resources, a lot funded by the United States, essentially it's a very small place, and also it is surrounded by a lot of people who they would consider ops. Okay, they're currently going at it over the you know, West Bank, Gaza Strip, with the Palestinians, who, you know, they're having this pretty much eternal war. However, when you look at the landscape of things, pretty much the biggest country out here, at least in this region, happens to be Iran. Iran don't fuck with these niggas, okay? Now, Iran is like, you know, they're like shrewd operators. They kind of like do some really interesting things in the Middle East. But they usually pretty much just fight their wars through like proxy like groups, you know? So, you know, they have groups that are stationed in Lebanon, Jordan, and essentially those groups kind of like do all the beefing with Israel to kind of make sure Iran doesn't have to directly beef with them. So basically the whole point is this: Israel don't like Iran. They would never like Iran. Iran don't really fuck with them. And Israel knows at some point you got to defeat Iran, but in trying to defeat Iran, Iran has, they call the axis of resistance. They have a bunch of like, whether it's Hamas, whether it's the Houthis and these other people, like, they have paramilitaries constantly fighting Israel that they don't got to fight Israel themselves. So what do? They go get the big bad United States, gas us up. We come over and we like King Slime running into motherfucking Charleston White. So we're trying to step on Iran and Israel is like, yeah, keep going. Now, Iran is doing some interesting shit, and I'm just giving you the current update. So what we did, we kind of figured out there was some instability that was there. There was some protests. They were kind of tired of this 30-year rule by this supreme leader. And we thought if we killed the dude, the people who were mad would take to the streets and take back their government, and probably we could help them pick a leader that we like. Except that's not happening, all right? Like, for whatever reason, we misread that, and a lot of people say it's not us misreading it, is we're sucking too much Israel penis. You get what I'm saying? Like, Israel gassed us up, you know what I mean? So we killed the nigga, right? The supreme leader, we killed him. They got a new supreme leader. We killed that guy too. We basically make it be known. You see Trump talking crazy. He's like, yo, we're going to kill all y'all leaders. And we're kind of like trying to tell him, don't get no more new leaders in y'all old regime. Just get a new regime that we could control. They're not going for it. They're like literally not going for it, right? So we're at the stalemate. What we thought would destabilize their country, because we try to do this from, afar. Destabilize their country, get a new regime in there. It's not happening. Instead, what their offense was this. They said, oh, word? That's what you want to do? I bet. We got you. So Iran knows, and this is, the beauty of the United States. Like, yo, shit, I'm in New Jersey. Like, Iran can't send a fucking missile over here, But Iran is like, I bet. United States, we can't catch you over here lacking. They start fucking up everybody that fucks with the United States in this region. Now, they have I think about 90 million people. So there's a lot of people, but also a lot of resources. So they sending bombs at everybody. So Iran is fucking up Saudi Arabia a little bit, Israel, anybody who is kind of fucking with the U.S., they giving them the beats. Okay? It's like what Dirk said, if you can't get the main nigga, go get his guy. So that's what Iran is doing. They're fucking up everybody in the Middle East. Now, there's a few things that are interesting, and war specialists probably could go deeper into it, but I'm gonna make it really simple. Iran, even though we've bombed a bunch of their military presence, Iran has figured out a way to do essentially what's called guerrilla warfare of sorts. Now, if you don't know what guerrilla warfare is, many, I'm gonna give you a little quick history. Many countries, like for example, even the country I was born in, if you wonder why, most oppressive regimes that went to the Caribbean, they didn't last long, or eventually they had to come to some agreement to give some type of colonial, recognition, or just leave those countries in general, is because unlike the United States, like for example, Jamaica, what happened was, yeah, they went to take over Jamaica, but the people fought back and they did what's called guerrilla warfare. Yeah, they didn't have all these guns, this and third, but they knew the terrain better. So they basically used advantages that wasn't just straight up firepower. And it became so frustrating for the people that was trying to conquer those places that over time, because they was also trying to institute slavery, they came to some type of compromise to say, listen, bro, you'll just be like a colonial type of thing, but we'll start granting y'all rights. And that's kind of pretty much the majority of the origin of most of this, especially Caribbean countries, relationship with the rest of the world. Now, unfortunately, we all know what happened in the United States. Pretty much they established slavery, majority in the South, and it was whatever. But if you wonder why other countries colonially didn't go down like the United States, and not saying it's better or worse, is that most of the stories you'll hear will kind of reflect these people kind of using their rocky terrain, their, forest terrain to their advantage to wage war against people who are trying to oppress them. Okay, why do I mention that, right? Because somebody will be like, you just want to give it a shout out to Jamaica. Well, I'm using that with Iran, even though it's a huge fucking country, Because the way how we are trying to like quote unquote fight this war is by basically just send over these big ass bombs and drop it on all their military things, right? Like obviously we're still in the we're in the 21st century, my nigga. Like we're not going to fucking drop bombs, or we're not supposed to drop bombs on civilian villages. We're not supposed to drop it on like a fucking, airport where there are people actually at. So war these days is kind of really structured, right? It's like, yeah, you could bomb a country, but you got to bomb their military bases. You got to bomb, their assets that could be pretty much weaponized against you. You're not supposed to be bombing, for example, their schools, their churches. That's not where war is, at least when it's recognized on a worldwide scenario. So what did the U.S. do? We started bombing all the Iran's, we blew up all their ships. We start going crazy on them. However, Iran was kind of preparing for this all along, right? They knew eventually they could never we spend, I believe, 3 times the amount on military as like the second, country in the world, right? Like, look, list of countries spending on military, right? And you'll notice our spending is like, what is this? Almost like $1 trillion or whatever. China spends 1/3, right? And they pretty much spend the second most, right? So the point of this is Iran is not trying to beef with us thinking that they're going to, go bomb for bomb with us. What they did is after we bombed all their shit, like their military stuff, right? Apparently there was like supposedly a mistake where we supposedly dropped a bomb on like a girl's like school, that's bad. When it comes to the Geneva Convention and other things like that, you actually realize that, that's how you become a war criminal, when you attack civilians in war. Now, that's another thing that kind of connects back to this Israel and, Palestine situation, because where some people say Israel is going crazy is that they have fought their war versus Palestine by bombing certain places where civilians are, and their defense is, you have basically, they're calling them terrorists, but it's people they're fighting against. They're like, if the terrorists are hiding among the people, like, come on, what the fuck are we supposed to do? So they just drop a bomb and yeah, they kill some innocents, but they're like, the niggas over there, like the niggas we want to kill is over there with the innocents, right? So anyway, the point of me saying that is that it essentially war these days, right, is meant to be military versus military, army versus army, naval resources versus naval resources, and air forces versus air forces. Yes, at times it gets to, let's try to cripple the infrastructure. Like, recently President Trump is saying we're going to bomb their not only oil reserves, but their power grid, that we could cripple them. But generally, you don't go drop a bomb and go kill 100,000 civilians. So that's how war is happening. What happened also with Israel, I guess I have to mention the other side. What happened with Israel, because Iran is also trying to bomb them. Israel is so small is that, it's kind of hard to only isolate that from, isolate war with their, IDF or whatever versus their civilian. And this is why they have like this thing called, I forgot what it's called, but the whole thing with Tel Aviv, and, they send their own bombs up to destroy other bombs coming in. Because, yes, there is civilian presence that's kind of like close around the capital, this and third. Okay. Now, I hope you guys are keeping up a little bit. All right. So what does all this mean, right? I know y'all like your act. What the fuck are you talking about? So how is Iran like lasting in this war? Well, they're not going to go bomb for bomb with the U.S. What they've been doing is they're fucking everybody else up, right? Not only they're doing that, they're kind of like counterpunching. They're using really cheap, and that's why I said guerrilla warfare. They're using cheap bombs and drones to target their enemies, while every time we bomb them, we're spending millions of dollars. So essentially, they spend 10,000, we spend $1 million. Every time we get at them, we spend $1 million. Every time they get at, they're not getting at us in the United States, but they're getting at everybody who's our allies or bases that we might control in that region. They're fucking spending tens of thousands. So essentially, the prospects of the war, you know the idea of it takes money to go to war. Well, it definitely does. But Iran is now kind of like mastered this idea of they're fighting a war that because they don't have to they're not trying to take over nothing, right? They just got to do some damage. They're fighting a war that basically cost them probably 1/50th of what everybody, including us, is spending. And that's the problem, because now we're fighting a war that financially is starting to rack up a huge debt. And we're hoping that they're going to, completely just fold, except their war is so cheap, essentially, that they are saying, oh, no, we can keep it going. What's the problem? Y'all keep spending money like it's going out of style. We'll just kind of keep doing our thing. So they're doing like drone technology. They're doing like these little ballistic missiles they're much cheaper than some of these, interceptor missiles that, for example, Israel has to use to make sure that a bomb doesn't fucking drop on Tel Aviv. And they're realizing that, okay, we're just going to keep y'all occupied. Now, the last part of this entire thing, okay, the last part of this entire thing, let me see if I can figure out where the fuck. Oh my God, why do my dogs sound like, okay, so the last part of this entire thing turns out that, let me see if I can find it. Okay. That Iran isn't so dumb after all. Iran is realizing, hey, if we could, in a way, and I guess this was always their advantage, they say we are very important. If we could cripple the world economy and cripple our enemy's economy, our enemy, basically, we could get them to go broke before we get broke. Now, you might be saying, okay, what are you talking about? Essentially, what happens is, and this is the important part right here, okay. Hold on, Jesus Christ. Yeah, my dogs is like going crazy in the background, I'm sorry. Okay. So, what happens is, I just want to show you the terrain right here, okay? Iran is really important because, it's very oil rich. It's always, going back to World War I, right? When Germany and the UK and, the Soviet Union, everybody was kind of getting into it. They always acknowledged Iran as, hey, you guys are a source of energy. You guys have a lot of oil and you guys are important. There was a time that they stayed neutral in one of these world wars, or actually both of them. And essentially, the countries that weren't neutral, they wanted to control parts of Iran because Iran is really important to the world's ecosystem in how currently we get natural fuels. Okay? Now, I think I got this right here, but I'm going to just zoom in. Right? I think it's around here, right? I think I'm trying to get like the exact fucking area. Give me 1 second. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Oh my God. All right. You know what? I'm just. Okay. All right. So basically, right above, and again, I know you got. Listen, I'll never even go to these places, right? Right above Dubai, but it's kind of like if you zoom out, it's under like Iran's asshole right here. Is this place called the Strait of Hormuz, right? And I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about it. Essentially, this becomes really important because the majority of ships that's taking out the oil out of this region needs to travel through this very narrow place to get into open water to bring oil to China, the USA, or any place else in the North or Southern American, Western hemisphere. So what Iran has done, Iran has basically said, all right, bet. Since we are playing this war in a strategic format, we're going to now, it's already basically in our territory. They're controlling it, and they're preventing most ships from going through, unless they're like, if you're like Chinese ships, because they're cool with China, they'll let you through. But other ships from our allies, they are not letting through, and that's their way of essentially playing the war in a financial status. Okay, now don't quote me on this, but it's something of like 20 million barrels per day that supposedly gets 20 million barrels of oil per day comes through this little fucking hook, and essentially it's so important, but it's so narrow, and it's such a big deal. It's not like you could have a flood of ships. So like really it's easy to take over, and they're basically fucking the shit up. And now Trump, who, they're basically saying, hey, listen, if y'all fall the fuck back, we'll let this shit kind of go, which means the world economy could, kind of get back to doing what it needs to do. Ships could pass through freely. But for now, the ships don't want to go through here no more, mostly from, what I've read, is because of like insurance, right? Because like the insurance companies that's covering all these barrels of ships, or these millions of barrels that's on these ships, they're saying, well, if Iran fucks up one of these ships or captures it or whatever, we know they're in war. It's like an insurance company know that you're about to go drag racing. They're going to be like, yo, fuck no, we're not covering this motherfucker. So they have said to most countries, we're not covering these ships. So there's a bunch of ships just like not passing through this place anymore. Okay? And it's slowing down the world economy. Gas prices are going up, and oil prices are going up, and this and third. And essentially, this is where everything is like kind of getting to a stalemate. Trump has now gotten us into a war. He's claiming that, we're basically winning, but we can't see the win. He's now deployed some Marines, I believe 2,500 Marines. Apparently, there's already like around 50,000 troops kind of in and around the area. The idea of fighting Iran was supposedly we could just send drones over there or like drop bombs and never go on land like how we eventually did in Iraq, in Afghanistan. But it's now being told we're probably gonna have to put boots on the ground because Iran is acting up. They're not going easy, right? So that's where we're kind of at. Trump keeps saying these motherfuckers is negotiating. They keep basically saying, fuck no, we're not negotiating. It's either we get what we want or good luck to you niggas. So it's a whole situation. And that's kind of like the latest of this particular war. Trump has kind of like sent some ships over there. And now he's starting to send people over there. And I got to be honest with you. You ever start beefing with somebody, or you ever been like, it's been like a few years you've been beefing with someone and you forgot the real reason you're beefing with them? Like the whole reason we even bombed these motherfuckers and killed their leader is because we thought they were this close to making nuclear bombs. We done claimed that we fucked up their whole military. We did A, B, C, and D, but we still don't stop. And because we want a regime change and they're not going to do that, we're now like continuing hoping that they're just going to like, just fold. And essentially they're fighting back not only against us, but everybody in the region. And they're now affecting the whole world economically. And then the worst part about it, Trump made like some statement like, yo, hey, any y'all that fuck with us, our, allies, y'all want to join in? Because, we're spending a lot of money like fighting this war alone. And this war will probably help y'all out too. And everybody said, nah, nigga, you got it. Everybody just said, yo, nah, nigga. You. So basically, the idea is the USA is in it by themselves. Why the fuck did we even do this shit? If we back out now, it's kind of a loss. It's just a shitty situation, all right? Very shitty situation. I'll give you the latest from like a news report, and then we'll kind of move on. I'll give you like a, let me see. All right. Okay, here's this.
I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3, we're hitting them very hard. Last night we knocked out tremendous amounts of missile-making facilities. As you probably read or wrote, we knocked out. Excuse me?
Pardon me for interrupting. The U.S. will be gone or done with the war in 2
I
or 3
think with
weeks?
2 or 3 weeks.
Not 3 weeks. If it is
We'll
3
leave
weeks,
because
then it
there's
would
no
be
reason for us to do this. Look, problem with the Strait, a guy can take a mine, drop it in the water, and say, "Oh, it's unsafe." It's not like you're taking out an army or you're taking out a country, or he can drop it, or you can take a machine gun from the shore and shoot a few bullets at a ship, or maybe an over-the-shoulder missile, small missiles. That's not for us. That'll be for France. That'll be for whoever's using the Strait. But I think when we leave, probably that's all cleared up. Today, I heard tremendous numbers of ships were sailing through. We're negotiating with them right now. We have had regime change.
Now, you're hearing Trump, I rock with Trump, but like everything just looks like he's lying through his teeth. They're not saying they're negotiating. He's basically saying, he's given the same problems. He's saying the same problems I told you. It's guerrilla warfare pretty much. The most of the world economy depends on this small choke point, and they could fuck up they could just shoot over the shoulder missiles and fuck up a ship. This strait isn't that big. And one option is that the US has to go play pretty much border patrol. You got to go sit there with your army tanks and then occupy the left. This shit would cost us a fucking fortune, right? And we got to play police because it's not only our shit coming through there, it's like other places. And those places don't want to help by sending their military. So we're just spending all the money. And of course, he's not going to say, this is not a good thing because, it's going to reflect on his presidency, but it's not a good thing, bro.
Ships were sailing through. We're negotiating with them right now. We have had regime change. Now, regime change was not one of the things I had as a goal. I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not.
So here you watch Trump trying to wiggle out of this. He said, I had one goal, that they won't have nuclear weapons. Remember I told you that was the original beef. Well, you're going to hear him say this was attained. All right, so if it was attained, why the fuck you still there? Right? Just dip. But it's not that. It's to force a regime change, but he's not admitting it. And that's why people actually think that Israel's running the government, because Israel would want a regime change, right? Israel had some type of, cooperation with Iran when they had a Shah there 30 years ago. So they want the supreme leaders who's ruling off of the Bible and all this shit, or not Bible, but their religious book, to get out of there, right? They want to get people that could recognize Israel and treat Israel like whatever. And it's kind of confusing when Trump is saying, you know what? My goal was accomplished. Well, what if it was accomplished? What the fuck are we still doing there?
Negotiating with them right now. We have had regime change. Now, regime change was not one of the things I had as a goal. I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job. And I think within maybe
finishing the job
2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job. But we want to knock out every single thing they have. Now, it's possible that we'll make a deal before that, because we'll hit bridges, and we've hit some. We'll hit some bridges. We've got a couple of nice bridges in mind. But if they come to the table, that'll be good. But it doesn't matter whether they come or not. We've set them back. It'll take 15 to 20 years for them to rebuild what we've done to them.
Yeah. So, we're in that type of situation at this point. They keep putting out a lot of propaganda. I don't know if you guys have seen their propaganda videos. So we're both putting out propaganda videos. So the U.S. is, obviously Trump is speaking. But if you guys have you guys seen that Iran is putting out propaganda video against the U.S.? So they're basically showing people no, the U.S. is doing some bullshit. And these are the videos they put out. Let me see if I can play it. I posted one to my Instagram. They've been posting a lot. And you might be like, what are you talking about? Well, in reality, what wars end up being, I keep telling y'all, what's the difference between a terrorist and a freedom fighter, right? Like, I guarantee they're looking at Trump like a fucking terrorist. You know how people say Netanyahu is like a fucking, he's this monster that committed genocide. What do you think they think about Trump? At least in Iran. Yo, Trump is going crazy. So again, it depends on the point of view you're from. And this is why the media matters so much, because in the United States, we're going to get flooded with information that, no, we're only bombing these people, not because we want to fucking control them and force them to do what we want to do. We're trying to protect this, sovereignty of countries in the Middle East and also our own backyard by not having these guys have nukes, right? So that's what our media puts out. Their media is going to make it seem like something else. Like, yo, these are the bullies who want to force us to change our regime when we're happy with how we've been running our country. They want us to be on some Western shit. Listen, watch this propaganda video that they put out about the war with the U.S. So they're showcasing countries that the USA has bombed or they have destroyed. They showcase the United States, obviously, with Native Americans, and then they showcase Japan, Hiroshima. We dropped a nuke on them. Vietnam. Yemen, we had, a couple years ago. And Palestine by proxy of supporting Israel. It's funny because they throw in Epstein Island. They're like, oh, look at Epstein Island. That should look great. And then they show their own people, which is Iran is kind of watching. And then this is the guy who we had killed. His name is General Qasem Soleimani. This is also the person that Khomeini that we killed as well. And then they kind of show a picture of, potentially hitting our, and this would be, I guess, the Statue of Liberty with like a goat head. You could see the Freedom Tower in the background. And they said vengeance for all. So it's almost kind of saying that, the U.S. is like, they're in their world, we're the terrorists. You know what I mean? They're saying we've been fucking everybody up, and they're basically saying we're going to try to get vengeance by getting back at the United States. So you kind of see propaganda in real time, right? So in our purview is like, yo, fuck them niggas. Over there, they're saying fuck us, right? One vengeance for all. Anyway. So, yeah, and they have a bunch of those videos coming out. I think this is about it.
We begin with the war in Iran. The U.S. and Iran continue to threaten each other as thousands of U.S. forces arrive in the Middle East. More than 3,500 troops, including 2,500 Marines, arrived in the region just over the weekend. This as the war enters its second month. And there's still mixed messaging from President Trump. He voiced optimism about talks with Iran, then issued new threats to the Iranian regime. He posted on social media, you can see some of that here, threatening to attack Iran's power plants or
Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating, what the fuck, all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and whatever.
Oil wells in Karg Island if a deal.
And that's what Trump is saying.
With Iran.
Now, earlier, the president told the Financial Times.
Okay, so Trump is saying we'll take the oil.
Has made it to the region.
Well, Mugo, even as the president is pushing for negotiations, thousands of more troops are arriving, with those 2,500 Marines arriving over the weekend, with more on the way. And we reported just this morning that there are hundreds of special operations forces now in the Middle East. This is
now, again, chat, I just want to simplify it for y'all. Y'all understand why people overseas probably hate the fuck out of us, right? it's one thing if they were already like really actively. This is why, like in most places, you got to wait till the people are already trying to overthrow the government. And, you know, there was reports that, oh, some people were celebrating, but we saw no real action for people to try to take power. You know, they kind of just like allowed the same regime to kind of just come up with a new leader. So the people ain't that mad at what the government in Iran at this point. So we trying to force something. We trying to force a fucking, what do you call it, a square thing through a peg hole. It just ain't gonna work. And yeah.
That island, the Marines coming, and some of the elements of the 82nd Airborne Division on their way could be suited for such an option to capture the island.
Israel and NATO
began. The only reason that could be concerning about.
Okay, so that's kind of what's happening. If you guys care to know, what's my prediction? I predict that the USA or the United States of America will eventually back out. And I think Trump wants to back out now. I think he had bad intel, especially from Israel, thinking that if they did a joint or supported attack on Iran, they would fold. But Iran has shown they're down to go for 60 days, 60 nights. They're not folding, which that becomes a problem. A lot of people are giving Trump a lot of flack. However, the optic of losing would be catastrophic for his legacy and for what people think about his decision making in the second term. And I believe that Trump is desperately trying to figure out a way to get a quote unquote win, but get out of it. Okay? He realized they won't fight all day. He don't want to fight all day. So he's trying to figure out the win. You hear him already kind of like talking it up like, nah, I already got my win. I just wanted to destroy the nuclear shit. Well, why you ain't out there yet? We just want, no. So I think he's trying to figure out a win. I don't know if there is going to be a win in sight, but that's where propaganda comes in. And I really like even point out these topics. I work in the media, and propaganda is one of the main things that anybody with power and money, they first attack, right? Like once you guys start thinking about that, not only with the government, but you think about it with the millionaires and billionaires, but even record labels and shit. We're about to go watch a Jay-Z interview soon. That's where the wealthy, the powerful, that's their playground. Usually media, not saying they're always complicit, but they're the place that propaganda gets sourced for people to get their way. If I could put out information for you to say I'm the good guy and that's the bad guy, when I go do something bad to the bad guy, you're not going to say I'm the bad guy. You're going to say I did something good. A lot of things in life is propaganda. By the way, I'll give you this one I told you about Iran before. Historically, even when they had a Shah, and that the Shah was working with the United States and was also, cool with Israel, but people felt it was too westernized. When they would start to protest, they would cut, I think they still do it now. They would cut all access to media for the country. Why? If people could see, oh, we're protesting at 8:00, people are going to go there. In most regimes and countries or oppressive regimes, you have to control the media to control the people. Okay? So just think about that going forward. All right. Hopefully I didn't bore the shit out of you with that. I'll mention this next topic really quickly before we get to